Selma City Council regular meeting to order September 16th, 2019 at 6 p.m. Our invocation tonight will be led by Pastor Deidre Clayton of Empowering Lives Christian Center. Welcome, Pastor.
May we bow our heads. Dear wise and loving Father, thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you for loving us even so from your boundless and gracious nature. In the scriptures, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council and citizens here. I am asking that you would graciously grant us wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and righteousness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace and joy in our lives. I pray for the agenda set before us today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in our beloved city of Selma. It is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and flag. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Avalos?
Here.
Councilmember Guerra?
Here.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Here.
Mayor Robertson?
Here, potential conflicts of interest. Any council member has a potential conflict of interest may announce the item now and recuse themselves from discussing or voting on the matter. Oral communications. At this time, any member of the public may address the council on any issue within its jurisdiction, but not on the agenda. No action or discussion will take place on the items raised during oral communications. Items of interest may be referred to the city manager for further review. Speakers are asked to limit their remarks to 3 minutes or under. Okay, with that seeing as we have no special presentations. Oh,
You always have me.
Mr. Armenta.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Let's see, where do I start? Friday night, I represented the City of Selma at our 70th anniversary of Boys and Girls Club at the Stepping Out for Kids Gala that was held in Fresno at Pardini's. Being Unit Director of the Year, that was selected by my peers and other staff members. I got to have a speech and talk about the great things that we have done here in the City of Selma, along with myself and the staff. It was really great to see, I want to say probably about an estimate about 400 people, not just for our club, but the other 13 Boys and Girls Clubs. It was really great to see the support that other people come out and give to the Boys and Girls Club. So with that, just to let you know also, I will be going to Sacramento tomorrow, representing your city of Selma and the Boys and Girls Club of Fresno County at Sacramento at a conference where people, where other unit directors like myself come from all over. Last time I went to a conference down in LA, there was Boys and Girls Club members from Hawaii. There were some from Texas, North Carolina. So I will be going out there tomorrow for a conference representing the city of Selma. Very proud to do that. Another thing, October 7th, we will be having a home flag football game at the Salazar Center. It's probably going to start roughly about 4:30. So that's one of the sports we are doing. It's 5-on-5, and the age bracket is 9 to 12 years old. So we have roughly about eight members that are going to be fielding the team. So if you can put that on your calendars, it's October 7th. Feel free to bring your lawn chairs, bring your bug spray, and come out and support us. Thank
Mark,
you.
it was great seeing you Friday. Rose and I got to join you in your dinner that night in that very well-deserved recognition as the unit director of the year. We're all so proud of you, and it was so nice to sharing that with you. It was especially sweet since we fought so hard for the Boys and Girls Club to come to the
Yes.
barrio for all the boys and girls, but especially those kids in the barrio for the at-risk youth in our community. So
Yes,
thank
it
you
was-
again for representing us. That
Thank you. It was great. It was great to have you guys at the table. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Raquel White. I come from Fresno, California. That's P.O. Box 8127, Fresno, California, 93727. So again, I come to you this evening. I think the wind just blew me in. I come from an agency called Construction Industry Force Account Council, also known as CFAC, C-I-F-A-C. We're a nonprofit organization dedicated to ensuring state and local governments' compliance with the California Public Contract Code. Currently, the City of Selma is a general law city with a bid threshold of $5,000. This means all public projects valued at more than $5,000 must be competitively bid and awarded to the lowest responsive bidder. The bid threshold does not give the city much leeway to self-perform or expedite simplified contracts on small projects. However, the city does have an option to increase this threshold and give itself more leniency in regards to utilizing force accounts or speeding up this process to contract for public projects. By opting into the California Uniform Construction Cost Accounting Act, also known as the ACT, administered by the State Controller's Office, the city will be able to self-perform or expedite bidding on projects under $60,000 and informally bid projects up to $200,000. This greatly reduces the time, effort, and expenses associated with bidding projects. There's no cost to become associated or a participating agency to the ACT. Additionally, there is currently approximately 1,239 public agencies who have opted into the ACT. Who have opted into the ACT and are benefiting from the simplified bidding process. An FAQ document outlining areas of concern and an explanation of benefits is available at the State Controller's website. I've handed out a copy of those FAQs for all the staff members as well as the city manager. I am recommending that the City of Selma submits the resolution to the State Controller's Office to become a participant of the ACT. I am happy to assist the city in any way that I can with the process, of becoming signatory to the ACT. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else for oral communications tonight? Okay, with that, seeing as we have no special presentations, I would like to advance item 3 of the regular business agenda in order to have a city attorney join us on the dais as we have a public hearing and consider other matters tonight. Do I have council consensus to proceed to item 3?
Yes.
Okay, with that, we'll proceed to item 3 of the regular business agenda. Consideration of a legal services agreement with Costanzo and Associates for special counsel services. Report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. With the resignation of the city attorney, effective September 13th, the city is in need of bringing in an interim special counsel. And on Friday, September 13th, City Council had a special meeting and provided direction to staff to me to go ahead and negotiate with Costanzo and Associates for special contract services. The agreement is attached to the staff report and outlines the agreement that we've come to, and that is a monthly retainer of $4,500 for attending council regular and special meetings, planning regular and special meetings, preparatory legal work, routine legal advice, assistance in preparation of and review of ordinances, resolutions, agreements, and other documents, and the monitoring of pending and current state and federal legislation. Also, anything outside of that is for a $145 per hour for Mr. Casanzo's services and $135 an hour for other attorneys within the firm, and $165 an hour for litigation for Mr. Costanza, and $155 an hour for any other attorney in the firm. The agreement that you have attached to your staff report, we did have an attorney at Liebert Cassidy Whitmore review the agreement today, and we had a couple more changes that I'll read into the record and that were agreed to by Mr. Costanzo as well. So in addition to what we've outlined, just I'd like to note that on page 2, section 3G, at the end of that, a clause was added that says, which is not included within general counsel services described in paragraph 2. So any other generally understood within the field of municipal law to fall within the category of general counsel work, which is not included within general counsel services described in paragraph 2. Then on to section 4, independent contractor. The corporation is an independent contractor and not an employee, addition of, or officer of the city. On to section 5, under compensation, section 2 and section 3, a clause to be added at each of those sections to be billed in increments of no greater than 1/10 per hour. Under compensation, section B, the corporation shall be reimbursed for reasonable, addition of reasonable, out-of-pocket expenses. Section 9 on termination. The city may terminate at any time, addition of without notice, without cause, and or, addition of or for any reason. And that, those were the final changes that were agreed upon.
Okay, thank you. I do have one question.
Yes.
Will there be an attorney for the city council meetings as well as an attorney for the planning commission provided? Is that correct?
I'm Neil Costanzo. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Yes, to answer your question, there is an attorney available for the Planning Commission and the City Council and any other board or body that the council comprises.
Thank you. Does council have any additional questions?
I do have a question. This is for the city manager. I don't see a time frame on this contract, because basically this contract is for interim services as we conduct our search for a permanent city attorney. So could we add a 90-day something
Certainly.
contract where this contract is good for 90 days, or
Well-
completion of the RFP process?
If that is the direction of council, we can certainly add a term to that. We have it starting today at 5 o'clock, but if we want to put a termination or a
Right.
sunset date on that with the concurrence.
It really makes no difference since it's terminable at will at any time. So
Well, so we could
But
add that 90
90
day
days.
clause, or completion of RFP process, whichever is sooner, I guess is the wording.
And if the RFP process is not completed by the end of that 90 days, the agreement just rolls over?
Well, we'll have to bring it up for extension, I would imagine. We can't be without an attorney.
No, it would automatically, what I'm saying is if it goes longer than 90 days to find a permanent attorney, this agreement, this temporary agreement automatically rolls over.
For additional 90 days?
No time frame, it just rolls over. We could do it for an additional 90 days. I mean, then it
Well-
just would roll over again, but I think in the interest of time, we should have, an automatic rollover, just so we don't have to
Right,
keep
but if
addressing this.
we can't have we'd want to avoid having an interim contract that sits here for 2 or 3 years, And not that it's going to happen, but we want just to avoid that. So if we put a little sunset in it, it expedites council to move forward on the process of getting the permanent city attorney.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any possible danger of this contract going into perpetuity, given the rates on the general counsel. I mean, I
So-
think that everybody's gonna be motivated
So I think
here
I'm fine
to
with
find-
it, 90 days
90
and rolling
days.
over automatically for additional 90 days at a time
Okay.
until we find our.
Okay, everybody good with that?
What are you?
Yeah, it's okay.
I have a question. So since September 5th, the 5th this month to now, we've gone from asking to evaluate our attorney to change to terminate our attorney to now we're looking at RFP for an attorney. This has nothing to do with you. As an elected official, I have the right to ask our city manager and our city council what occurred from September 5th to now that we're in this position. As an elected official, I have the right to know what were the reasons were to evaluate and then to change to terminate and to change to look at her contract and to where we're at now. When will we have that discussion, or are we gonna have that discussion?
So I had received a request in regard to a council request that gets put on the agenda. There was the request, and that was put on the agenda by council. And from there, we received the resignation. So that's how we are here.
That's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking that September 2nd or 5th, there was a request to evaluate the city attorney.
Mhm.
On September 10th, at 8-something, the mayor asked to look over her contract. At 12 o'clock, the city council member requested to change from evaluating to terminate. I'm asking as an elected official that represents 1/5 of this community, what occurred? As an elected official, I have my due diligence to know, did she do something illegal? Did she do something wrong? I'm not, right now, I could concur with what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, that the 90-day structure and this, that's fine. But can somebody ask and let me know what occurred?
I think the person that requested
Okay,
I don't know if you want to do that at this point, though.
let me answer that.
At this point?
I'm the guy
It's-
who requested
I'm
it.
asking him.
Okay, well, just
I'm not
get
the-
on-
I'm not-
get
I'm
on
the
the-
guy,
get on the
listen, I'm the guy that requested it first, and then something occurred, and then I had to change that. And so now the individual is gone. Unfortunately, case closed. I'm not gonna talk about personnel anymore or anything else. That individual is, decided to leave, so I'm gonna leave it at that, okay? And, anytime it comes to personnel, I don't care who it is, when they either are terminated or decide to leave on their own, case closed. We don't even discuss it no more. We close it and move on. And that's where I'm at.
The city operation, the way it works, we
I'm
are not
just telling you,
administrative form.
Johnny.
We are not administrative form of government. We, the council, do not direct. We do have the attorney at will. We do.
That's
But we
right.
also have due process. And we also know that we are a joint city council, and we also know that because we are a joint city council, we ask each other and we together inform each other of what's going on. All I'm asking is to get some information. I'm not pinpointing any personal attacks to anyone. I'm just asking if the individual that was representing the city of Selma did something wrong, please let me know. That's all I'm asking. I'm not pinpointing. I'm not attacking anybody personally.
Johnny, I'm gonna tell you something. That person left, okay? And when they leave in that manner, the case, whatever takes place, is closed. I don't care what took place, good or bad, that person left, and they're on a curve, and we just move on.
Okay, so with that, we'll refer this back. Actually, we'll ask if there's any public comment. Seeing none, we'll bring this back to council. No more public comment. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to accept this agreement for legal services agreement with Costanzo Associates, PC, for special counsel services?
With the additional
With the
changes.
additional changes we discussed.
Okay, I'll make that motion to accept.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Avalos,
Yes.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco,
No.
Mayor Robertson.
Yes. Okay, with that, if you would please step up to the dais. Mr. Costanzo, welcome, and thank you for serving. And since Neil was the city attorney for many years, I think you've got the gist of the way these meetings go. So
I'm familiar with it, yes.
very good. With that, we will jump back into our regular meeting at this point and move on to the consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar category are considered routine. The complete consent calendar may be approved by one majority roll call vote. For purposes of discussion, any council member may have an item removed from the consent calendar and placed back on the regular agenda. The council will then approve the remainder of the consent calendar. Does anyone have any items they would like to remove from the consent calendar tonight?
The register, I'm gonna take off the register.
Okay. Councilmember Guerra has requested item B. Is there a motion to approve item 1A?
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Aye.
Mayor Robertson?
Aye. Okay. Councilmember Guerra.
Okay, let's go to page 5. Check register number 73327. It says Nissan of Visalia, 2018 and a 2019 Nissan Maxima units 232 and 233 for a total of $57,287.21. Can I get some clarification on that, Isaac, please?
Sure. There's two vehicles are part of the budget process. There were in the PD's department. There are two undercover vehicles for them.
Okay.
They're additions.
And I'm just a little confused where it says Nissan of Visalia. We have a Nissan here in Selma.
Well, what the police department did is because of the dollar amount and the cost factor, they had to go out for multiple quotes, and they went for the lowest amount is what occurred.
Okay, so that's the bidding process?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'd like to look at item 73329 right below it. Two below it for PG&E Utilities, August 2019, $50,641.62. Is that a little high for 1 month?
Yeah, it is a little higher in this period. This is a summer month, so the PG&E would be a little bit higher. Usually you see that they range around the high 40s, mid 40s, so because
Like
of the summer
winter,
month,
it's
it's
like
just
30s or 40s.
Yeah.
And this is lights, this is lighting, as well as air
that's
conditioning
everything.
and all
That's
that.
that's our biggest bill. We have multiple bills, but that's the biggest set
Okay.
is in there. Mhm.
Power and lights, okay. All right. Does anyone else have any items they'd like to pull off? Okay. Is there a motion to?
Make a motion. to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Aye.
Mayor Robertson?
Aye. With that, we'll move on to the public hearing tonight. We will have two parts of this public hearing. The first part of the public hearing will be to receive input concerning district maps for the city council elections, district boundaries, and the sequencing of elections. Second public hearing will be the consideration of ordinance number 2019-4, an ordinance of the city council amending chapter 11 of title 1 of the City of Selma Municipal Code to establish the election of members of the city council by 5 districts, the boundaries and identification number of each district, and the election order of each district. Report, please.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council members. It's my pleasure to be back here this evening. Just to remind the public where we are. We are actually having our 4th and hopefully 5th public hearings of the process that's prescribed by the government code for transitioning from an at-large election system to a by-district election system. So we held our 2 initial hearings to receive input on drawing the maps. Next, we received, on September 3rd, we had our first view at maps, and here we are tonight with our second view at maps and discussion at maps. And hopefully the council is able to decide a map for ultimate adoption. Just to remind the council of the requirements that we must abide by when we are making the transition from an at-large to a by-district system. So we have both the California Voting Rights Act that we must be mindful of, and we also need to be mindful of the Federal Voting Rights Act. So federal law requires that each of the districts have equal population. That's based on the 2010 census data. We'll be adjusting the district boundaries in 2020 after that population information is available. Actually in 2021. So the new population numbers usually come out around May in 2021. So we'll be adjusting these boundaries after that. We'll hold one election with these boundaries and then adjusting again in 2021. The federal law also states that there could be no racial gerrymandering. So when the districts are drawn, we must be mindful of several factors in drawing the districts. So if you have a very odd-shaped district, there better be a good explanation other than it was drawn just to pick up a certain protected class group. None of the maps presented here tonight show any racial gerrymandering, so we feel fine there. The other criteria in the federal law is that you can't knowingly divide a protected class group if they have a particular concentration area as to dilute their voting strength. None of the maps that we're presenting tonight do that, so we are all safe on the federal side. On the California Voting Rights Act, interestingly enough, does not prescribe how you draw the boundaries. However, there are traditional criteria to be followed when we're drawing the boundaries, and on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see those. During the first two hearings, we identified certain communities of interest. Those particular communities of interest, from my notes, let me just grab that real quick. All these different papers that I was trying to keep in the right order. Oh, thank you. The council expressed interest in seeing possibly a map that had multiple representation of the downtown community as a community of interest. Also a map that represented a single representation of the downtown area as a community of interest. Also multiple extension of districts across Highway 99 as a community of interest. Multiple representations in the Barrio neighborhood, and compactness of north, south, east, and west, and respecting voters' wishes. So avoid pairing council members when possible. For purposes of defining the downtown area and we also included the west side area. The downtown area, actually, and thanks to Raina, we sought the advice of one of your police sergeants who's been with the city for over 25 years. So for tonight, for these maps, when we were drawing them, we considered downtown boundaries to be the railroad, on the north, the railroad, North, Grant, McCall, and 2nd Street. For the Barrio neighborhood, Thompson, Nebraska, the 99 freeway and Valley View. And for the west side, Rose in the north and 99 on the east side. In looking at the advance, typically we look at the map and identify the concentration areas of your protected class groups. For the city of Selma, your protected class group is your Latino community. That's based on the minority-based language for the Latino community. There's, throughout the history of elections, we have not always had election materials readily available in Spanish translation, so they are considered a protected class group. In the city of Selma, you don't really have a particular high concentration area because it's all over the city. Some of the outlying east and west areas are a little less densely populated with Latino community, but also they're also less densely populated. And there are no particular concentrations of Asian American groups or African American groups throughout the city. So on September 3rd, as I mentioned, we received 8 maps from the public. All 8 of those maps did not meet the legal criteria of being population balanced. So the city council was not able to consider any of those. In fact, they were so far out of balance that it would have been a complete redraw of the maps to make them population balanced. There were 3 maps that were drawn by NDC. Each of those 3 maps did the best we could at trying to meet the traditional criteria identified by the council, as well as the communities of interest identified by the council. So there were only the olive, purple, and tan maps that were able to be considered at the September 3rd meeting. Since that time, we had 5 residents drawing maps. They submitted a total of 9 maps. 4 were not population balanced, and those were maps, we identified all the public maps with the letter P in front. So P109, P112, P113, and P117 were not population balanced. We were able to work with a couple of the submitters to have them resubmit. With all of the submitters, we let them know whether they were population balanced or not population balanced. There was only one that was submitted very late that was very far out of population balance that we couldn't allow them the opportunity to resubmit. There was not time. So, one map, P110, was population balanced, but submitter made changes and sent in a revised one. It's up here on the screen, but I don't have it included in the PowerPoint. All the ones that are up here on display in the council chambers are legal and could be adopted by the council and meet all the legal requirements. So the four maps were drawn by residents that are population balanced are P111, P114, P115, and P116. The next slide identifies the maps that were drawn by NDC. The purple map was drawn to be as compact as possible and respect major roadways wherever possible. This is the map that has a single representative in the downtown area, that's District 3. It has two representatives covering the west side area, one representative for the Barrio area, and two total west of the railroad. 3 total districts touch the railroad. Oftentimes there are jurisdictions that have issues with the railroad and want to have several districts touching the railroad. The tan map has 2 representatives in the downtown area, 2 in the west side, 1 in the Barrio neighborhood, and 3 west of the railroad. And Highway 99, obviously. And on the olive map has 1 representative in the downtown area, 3 in the west side area, 2 representing the Barrio area, 3 total west of the railroad, and 4 that touch the railroad. Each of these 3 maps avoids pairing any council members. Next are the maps that are submitted by the public. There are pairings in these particular maps, and we can go into detail if there's particular desire. In all cases, there are 3 council members that are paired in at least one of the districts, and in I believe it's 2 others, there are 2 council members paired in one district and 3 in another district. Most of the comments, when we did receive comments, were based on compactness. And we can let the speakers who are here submitted those maps speak to their maps either before your public hearing or during your public hearing, probably during the public hearing. And then, as I mentioned, ultimately our goal is to select a preferred map. We are able to bring up the interactive map viewer where we can zoom in very closely to these various borders and show the specific street names. We also have the census blocks. The census blocks are important because we have to follow the geography of the census blocks. So sometimes these borders look strange to you, and it's because that's the geography, how the federal government defined a particular census block. So if there's a question as to why a line is drawn a certain way, it's helpful oftentimes if we look at the interactive map viewer and zoom in closely to see if it's just the nature of how the particular census block was drawn. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. And then for clarifying questions before the public hearing or after the public hearing, whatever is your pleasure.
Great, thank you. Does council have any questions tonight? Okay.
Just you've done a good job.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work on this, and you're almost there. 4 out of 5. Thank you for the journey. Just a clarification. We're doing 2 public hearings tonight. So we're going to have one on selecting the map and another on the sequencing of the elections. Are those the decisions that we're going to make tonight? And each will be its own public hearing?
One's the ordinance, one's the selection of the map, and the other's the ordinance.
Yes.
And the ordinance will include the sequencing of the election? Or that be chosen with the map?
Yeah, so the sequencing is typically printed on the map. We'll need
Some
to
of them
make
have options, though.
right. Some of them have options. So at the time you're selecting the map, we'll drill down on the proposed
Okay,
sequencing
so
and
sequencing
define
will be
that
part of the map selection.
definitively before you go on to adopting the ordinance.
So
Okay.
first one, we just choose the map, next one, we choose the sequence.
Yeah. Okay, with that, we will open the public hearing for public input. Would anyone like to come forward and address city council on any of the maps tonight?
Hi, Teresa Salas, 3221 Lee Street. I have been doing some research, and the definition of gerrymander is to manipulate the boundaries of an electoral constituency so as to favor one party or class. And in this case, I believe it's the present city council. The lines being drawn for olive, tan, and purple are drawn in such a way so that none of you have to run against each other. Even though you all live, 3 of you live within half a mile of each other, 2 of them right across the street from each other. And so I feel that those are not compact maps. To me, a compact map is logical boundaries, major cross streets, not a cross section. There's the, she said that some of the criteria are topography, geography, cohesiveness, continuity, integrity, and compactness, and communities of interest. The east side of town, whether we like to say it or not, is a little bit more affluent than the west side of town. So I think that having the people who can afford to run against the people who can't afford to run is unfair. Also, consideration of incumbency can be used, but it's not the trump card to say that that's the main reason for the lines to be drawn. So that you're crossing boundaries, normal boundaries of major cross streets. The NDC has been involved in lawsuits in the past with other cities for drawing maps such as the 3 that they've submitted to you. I feel that, first of all, the 8 maps that were initially drawn by the public were all logically drawn. You could not accept them because they were not population correct. 5 people submitted maps again, and those 5 maps show you what the majority of the community wants to see, or how they want to see this city divided equally. I understand that you guys don't want to run against each other, but it's not fair to the community because we've asked you, we've submitted maps, and we've told you what we want. And I don't feel that you are listening to us.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any public input tonight?
Hello, my name is Humberto Gomez. As you guys know, I grew up in Selma. I don't live here. But I got about 300 of my family living here in Selma. I grew up in the same street as Councilman Guerra grew up, and that's the barrio. And when I see this map, P10, which is the one that seems to me that the olive, I'm sorry, is the one that you guys are favoring. I see a lot of gerrymandering here. I mean, because she explains the fact. You don't want to run against each other, but I think what you're doing is a disservice to the barrio. You're dividing the barrio in 1, 2, 3 areas, so which it means is that we might never have a city council member that will represent us properly. And we want to continue to be as the way it is right now, that you go to the barrio. I'm glad that we still had one of the best restaurants in the whole state of California in that area. But besides that, we got nothing. You guys know. I mean, Scott, you've been in the area. You married somebody from the barrio too. You know, so what's wrong with you guys? I mean, you know, think about it. I mean, and don't be afraid against running against each other. Basically, that's what I want eventually. That one of you guys grew up and, you know, and give us an opportunity to send you to other areas. You know, it could be at Board of Supervisors. We're looking for one to run against Mendez, my friend Mendez. You know, so just think about it. I mean, you know, but the way it is here, I don't like it at all, and I think, you know, it's a good possibility that that you guys are going to have problems, legal problems. So you go with the olive one, you know. So that's what I want to. Please consider the barrio. I've been talking to Jim. I'm sorry, Mr. Trujillo, I haven't talked to you, but you know us. And Scott, we've been discussing the barrio a lot. I mean, you know, the barrio needs to get some consideration because that's where the majority of the Selma people does live. And, you know, and we voted for you because it was a complete election. All those 5 people that are there, we voted for you guys. My family voted for you guys. You know, but, you know, they're not going to be happy with this area. And congratulations on your appointment as a temporary city council member. I see, I mean, attorney. I see him in Parlier quite often because I'm probably the only first person that testify in Parlier most of the time. But I hope that you guys consider this because it's the way it looks.
Thank you.
All colors going one way and another.
Hello, my name is Joe Gonzalez. I live in the barrio. In 1967, in Sunnyvale, I worked on the Apollo 8. I was in an experimental room. When they gave me a blueprint to do a part, they didn't give me the blueprint for a part. They gave me a blueprint for the whole wings or whatever it took, and I had to pull the part out myself. I'm looking at this blueprint, and you got a lot to be desired, whoever drew them, because on one is showing me the barrio 5, all solid lines. On the other one is showing me the barrio with dotted lines, the barrio solid lines in the west side, in dotted lines, it's all in the barrio. What's going on? Are we being cut off, or are we being singled out because it's the barrio? Don't forget, the barrio pulls a lot of power, and we're not as efficient as the other side of town, but we do have a lot of people that pay taxes and have kids that go to school, and we need the help just as much as the other side of town. Now, a while back, Jimmy Avalos was the mayor of Selma. He went and talked to me and said, we have problems, how can we take care of them? Me and him walked the barrio together, and we started pinpointing the bad areas where nobody wanted to take care of. Jimmy did. He took care of, now the whole city is quiet now because of him. Why are you going to take him away from us? Put him on the other side of town? There's no reason to move him, leave him in the barrio. With that, I hope somebody redoes these maps and give us a little more time to look at them. Because I do have a college education, I can look at the numbers where it's saying populations, and the barrio seems to be the biggest Hispanic population. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to stand up and be heard? Okay, with that, we will.
We have one more. No, he's got
Oh.
one more, Scott. We have another one.
Berto, come on up. Thanks for coming out tonight.
No announcement at all. As always, I have my heart and soul's always been in the barrio. 2020 Valley View. Never forget that address. And also, as a kid, giving directions for people from Visalia and Los Angeles to Sal's Mexican Restaurant while I was a child riding a bike. The reason I just bring up, I do look at the maps, and I'm worried that basically we could be, susceptible to a lawsuit. In terms of that, I went to a lot of I listened to a lot of the Moore hearings, Kingsburg, because, and also in terms of, I heard the spokesperson talking about concentrations. I can tell you by getting chased by chihuahuas and pit bulls and everything that there's a definitely high concentration in certain areas of our community in here in Selma. And what I want is just for, you know, I've always said that basically I wanted equal representation. I have nothing against all the council members here. I've had conversations with every one of you. Ms. Guerra, I just knocked on your door, but you weren't there. But that's when I was canvassing for my sister, who got elected to, now I'm proud of her. So I always knew she was gonna be the first person elected in the family. And so that's what I want. I look at the maps and I look at the school district. Was that ever evaluated? That's just my question that I wanted to ask. And in terms of, you know, as far as running against each other, I don't look at it as running against each other. I just think that, you know, it's up to the voters. It's always been up to the voters. And if you present a vision and an aspect for our future that has demonstrated, you know, every aspect of what you can do. My aspect in the future is to bring a medical school here to the Central Valley.
Great.
And there's a plot of land, dang, got 50 seconds. So there's a plot of land I know there by Walmart. And eventually I think that could be, why does it always have to be Fresno? Argue with the Secretary of State, argue with the governor, argue with everybody, because I'll always be a proponent of Selma and our rural communities. So that's the perspective I bring. I've looked at the maps and I looked at the school district, and I'm just wondering, my question would be to the council and to the city attorney as well. And I know you're part of Huron too, so so congratulations. He's everywhere now, Mr. Costanzo. And so that's my question. Was that ever looked at in terms, or also for the person and the spokesperson for the maps? So thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Alberto, I appreciate it. Okay, does anyone else have any public input they would like to make tonight? With that, we will close the public hearing, and we'll bring the matter back to council. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to make at council tonight?
I do. I have some comment. You know, I probably agree with everything I'm hearing out there. You know, as a member of this council, I feel it's a privilege and an honor to represent this city. And regardless of what district I end up in, I still feel it's our duty to serve the entire city, but also take that extra step to focus on our districts. But I have to say that while these colored maps may be technically legal, are they fair to the community? Is it fair that it's so non-logical for the average citizen to say, hey, just go to your neighborhood councilman. Oh, where is he? Oh, he's on the other side of town. Also, I don't know if it's maybe perception is not the right word, but this idea that there aren't capable and qualified and willing people that live on the west side of town that will be willing and will do a great job running is not, I don't believe that. I believe the people in this community is Selma's greatest asset. I said that, and I truly believe that. So I think we really need to draw, I'm leaning toward picking one of these logical maps, and hey, we live where we live, and you draw a map that makes sense, and you live where you live. And I can say it's easy for that self-perseverance gene to kick in and say, I want my own district. But if we're talking about the betterment of the community, maybe we need to select a map that is logical, that makes sense to all the community members, and then and go with that. So those are my thoughts.
Anybody else have any comments?
Johnny, you gonna say something, Johnny? I'll let you say something. Go ahead.
No, wait for you. I'll do last. Go ahead.
Anybody jump in?
Go ahead.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Well,
Councilmember Avalos.
I'm waiting for a Top Gun over here.
I'm waiting for you. You're the special person.
It's okay, man. That's all right.
You know what's going on in the city.
That's true.
All waiting.
That's true.
We're all
Okay.
waiting.
All right, after viewing these maps and everything, and the public comments and everything, and people that come up here, and, you have to kind of, I have to say to ourselves, first, I admire the people that turned in the maps. They became correct. Far as we know, they're correct. Am I correct down there? Okay. And with that information, it's a lot to me, it's a short time to evaluate some of these maps, because they're all good maps. I just feel that in my heart, I think I need more time. Analyze these maps. Honestly, I need more time. It's they're all good maps, but again, you got to hear from the public. What the public wants, the issues they have. They make good comments. Some feel they're not being representative, and some feel that they feel like their district is not being fairly divided, and you have to kind of understand the issues a little bit, and I'm going to save my comments for last whenever we decide here.
Okay,
But
thank you.
okay,
Councilman Trillo?
The word is true representation. I understand, Mr. Avalos, you're gonna probably want to delay this and carry it over for the next election. And I know that we're gonna probably have open election,
that's fine.
and waste $30,000. Why would you not waste 30,000? You guys have spent probably $100,000 on different
Hey.
cases. True representation is true representation. If the Vadio their capacity or their income level is at a certain level, and the other side of town is another certain level, and you're wanting to represent them, that's not true representation. It doesn't sound right when you see, and I worked in the fields, and I wasn't here, but at the same time, I'm gonna say, if the Vadio needs representation, they need the representation that they have, the ancestors they did, the people that worked in the fields and the people that represent them. You can say that you represent the Vadio and live in the town and have a $900,000 home. You're not representing the Vadio. And I'm not just talking about the Vadio, I'm talking about every community that is represented in this community. True representation means that you represent your community and you have the same thought that your neighbor has. When you get up in the morning, you turn over and you look and you see them and you say, hi, and I have this problem. That's true representation. I'm not pinpointing and getting personal. I'm not getting personal. It's just true representation. That's what I asked for. That's what the community is asking for. And why can't we vote on something really clear and just say we want true representation? Why, when I look at these maps, I have an individual that's being taken out of his, there's a street right here that you're pulling out of here, and you're putting him in another district just to have him run. If we all run against each other, that's fine. If I'm not here in 4 years, that's fine. But if we get true representation and we share each other's growth, maybe that'll be a starting point so ever this community can get united and start working together. We have a lot of conflicts, but you know what? This will probably be a start if we do true representation. That's what I want. That's all I want, true representation. I don't want no delay tactics. I don't want to have carried over to the following election. So that's what I want.
Okay.
Well, at this time, we really fall in an unusual time because we were never a district city. We were at large. So I agree. I mean, we all ran, we were all voted by the citizens. And for those that represented the Vadio, that didn't have a problem going to the Vadio, you know, we did that. And to this day, we still know a lot of people. I know a lot of the original people that still live in the Vadio. And those people come to us for everything. But we represent the entire city, not just a certain part of the town. Now, yes, now we're falling into district. We didn't have to go district. We really didn't. But we chose to do that so that we don't get hit with a $30,000 hit. Do we want to wait? because we're gonna have to do this again in 2021. These maps are gonna change in 2 years anyway. I mean, I'm still kind of thinking about it. Should we wait or should we move forward? But what bothers me is when people say this is illegal. This is not illegal. We used a professional to do our maps. I think if we were doing something illegal, she wouldn't be here. So that's an insult. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. You know, I started my own business in 2001. My business is, I'm an insurance agent. I get up every day and I compete for my business. I have no problem competing. Do it every day. I've been doing it since 2001 in my own competitive field. I've run in 2 elections so far in an at-large field. Got no problem competing with other people in the elections too. I'm good with running and with contests. But what I'm have a problem with is most, if not all, of these other maps have they don't respect the choices of the voters for their elected representatives. You know, forcing all 5 of the elected representatives into 2 districts is going to lead to 3 eventually being put out of office at some point. There's, as Councilmember Guerra said, there's no threat of immediate legal action. The city is doing this to beat it, to be ahead of that. The city to the south, there was a threat of immediate legal action there, and they had to put some council members in the same districts because they had to achieve that proportionality. Selma faces no such threat. We're doing this simply because we want to be prudent with taxpayer money. There is no problem. I haven't heard people say there's a problem with people living close to each other, not living close to each other. People have been judging us about what we do, how our words and our actions gel, how they're the same, how our actions back up our words. I mean, as the demographer indicated, there is no ethnicity problem. And no matter how you slice up 4 or 5 districts, the ethnicity is legal. That makes these maps legal. We have a couple of the people who drew the maps who live closer to each other than Councilmember Guerra and I do, and yet they put themselves in different districts. If you judge, and what these maps are is just on where you live, that's the sole criterion, not what you've done, not your track record, not your attendance at meetings, not your love of people. It's where you live. It's an address, it's a number, and you can move. You can get a rental. This is not fixed, this is not permanent. What I'm saying is it's about, elected office is about more than your zip code and about where you live. It's about your heart, and it's about your record, and it's about what you've done. It should not be about how many feet you are from one house to another. And I think everyone should have the right to run regardless of where they live, and I think the voters should be respected, and I don't think people should be put out of office just to fulfill some lines on a map. Thank you. Are there any other comments?
I make a motion to approve map P114.
Is there a second?
Map, what was map? P114.
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco,
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos,
You know, I'm going to abstain from this issue. You know, I'm abstain from this issue.
Councilmember Guerra,
No.
Mayor Robertson.
No. Is there a motion? Motion fails. Is there another motion?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the purple map.
And I will second that. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos,
I'm going to abstain from that issue again.
Councilmember Trujillo,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco.
No.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I just wanted to share, if there is more time that is needed, we would have to have a special meeting. We do have to wrap up this process by October 7th in order to avoid any legal, but we can have another special meeting if that is the
Yeah, I
direction
think,
of
you know,
council.
I'll be honest with you, I think we should have a special meeting to give us more time, council, and also the more input from the public. Because I'll be honest with you, Teresa, or my colleagues here, you know, I don't care what they think about me or what I do. I'm a person that I go out and get the input from the public. I'll walk the ground, find out what they want, and what representation they want. And at this time, we have so many maps in front of us. And the other issue, the concern is, I do have, is the particular, there was a lawsuit with this company. And the issue is, that's another issue that's come across my mind. If these maps are legit, are they actual voting records accountable? You know, that's the other concern I have, because the information that sometimes brought to some of these companies don't have a true information, and sometimes they're giving whatever's available and they end up in the courts. And I don't want one of these issues to end up in the courts. You know, so that's my concern.
And I would say the consultant has verified that these.
I'm addressing that to your, okay.
Would you like to address that?
No map that has been drawn by NDC outside of litigation has ever been successfully challenged. So there's been no map that has been ever overturned on a legal issue that NDC has challenged. There was a case that was filed in the city of Martinez based on election section 21601. It's my understanding the status is that there is a motion to dismiss that. Section 21601 talks about the various factors that may be considered, including topography, geography, communities of interest. And the demur that was filed states that it's a may, it's not prioritized. So the case sought to prioritize how council members, or how the districts were drawn.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're at a standstill,
Right.
so we would need to, we're not gonna take action tonight. We would have a special meeting to further discuss the maps. The public meeting is closed.
Can you, when you do that special meeting, can it be in an evening time, not a morning session, because most people are not available to come to a morning meeting? That's
Okay.
what I would ask.
Our public meeting, our public session is closed. Thank you for the input.
Mr. Mayor, can we have the meeting, special meeting, done after 6 o'clock at any date at your convenience, Mr. Avalos?
How much time you need, Jim?
How much time you need to have the meeting?
And I just want to clarify for our consultant
I
that
just,
we don't.
wait, can I, just,
certainly.
can you take note that I requested that we have this meeting in the evening to have true representation of the community? And how much more time do you need, Mr. Avalos? You've been at the city hall, you have a lot of information. How much more time do we need?
Well, you know, I'm gonna tell you something, Johnny. You know, I wanna make sure what we're doing, you know, and I don't wanna keep us away from any kind of lawsuits from anybody, from either side. I wanna make sure that the information we do have is correct. And the other issue, we need more, because these maps have dropped on us so suddenly, you know, and to sit there and analyze these things, it takes a little more time, you know, than you think. I'm the kind of guy who looks around, I drive around, look at, and I need more time to talk to the public more. And give me about a week or less, 7 days, I can.
Okay, so what are the
We're on the
requirements, the time
time
requirements in
What are the
terms of
what's the
Yeah.
criteria
preparation?
then?
No more maps can be submitted, is that
No,
correct?
No, just these maps only.
I just want to confirm that we don't have any changes to the maps and that Because
we
if we
making any
did, then we
changes to the
would,
maps
we would
tonight?
be talking about some other timelines.
Are you making any changes?
So if we don't have
Okay.
any changes to the current maps, then we can have a meeting next week, as you've indicated you need a week.
Okay, so we could have a meeting 7+ days from now. You need at least a week
Yeah, give me
to
a week
mull this over?
to really analyze the situation. And I have better understanding with the public and walk the precinct and a little more input. And make sure it's, and more understanding of
We
the
do have a planning
legalities that took
commission
place.
meeting on
The
on the
20
23rd.
On the
Monday,
9th.
23rd,
on
that's
this.
on the anyway.
And also, Teresa, the legality
About
that
the
took place
26th,
in the
Thursday.
lawsuit with these cases, you know, I want a little more information on them, what took place,
I got COG.
okay?
I think
Please. I can't do it
Miss
Thursday.
Tilton did just
I could do it Wednesday or
discuss that.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
She-
okay.
Later in the
Okay.
week works better for me.
Okay.
Wednesday.
Friday.
Well, Friday works great.
Friday, everybody good
I
Friday?
can't do it
Whatever,
Thursday. I got
Friday,
I've got call
United
Thursday.
Health
Okay.
Centers.
27th.
How about Friday?
Whatever, let's do it. I'll do it. Yeah.
Friday at 6?
Let's do it.
Which Friday, the 20th or 27th?
Friday the 27th.
That's
Perfect.
good.
Can everybody do it Friday the 27th?
I'm open.
At 6?
Yeah.
6
okay.
PM?
Friday the 27th.
Friday meeting, right?
Okay.
I'll have to double check.
Okay.
2 o'clock.
So for right now, tentatively, we're on for
Tentative.
Friday the
Okay.
27th.
All righty.
And
What's the notice
special-
I'll
we
have to
need for a
double check
special
my
meeting? 24
calendar. I
hours?
don't-
24 hours,
72?
24.
24.
And we'll,
All right.
if anybody suddenly has a problem with the scheduling,
Yeah.
we
Well,
can
no,
I'll
I
let
can,
can
We
let
have
the
time
city
to
manager
adjust.
know. Yeah, we got time.
Well, that clears 2 items.
Okay, so with that, we will continue that item, and we'll move on to
We can't do
item
sequence.
4,
Okay.
consideration of moving the October 2019 Community Cleanup Week drop-off location from within the City of Selma to the Waste Management Transfer Station at 5608 South Villa Avenue, Fresno. Report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Waste Management does a biannual community cleanup, and the last one, they moved to 5608 South Villa Avenue in Fresno, and they've asked again to have it at that location. So bringing it to council per our contract to see if council would approve it not being in the city limits, but it does lend to more hours of operation for drop-offs and more resources to help with unloading.
well, you know.
We have 2 people from Waste Management tonight. Would you like
Yeah.
to stand up and be heard on this? Give us a little more detail.
Good evening, Council. Mayor Michael Rivera with Waste Management, here to address any questions or comments that you have regarding the staff report and the item before you. As City Manager Galvan had let me know in her report, the cleanup that was held in the earlier part of this year was moved to the waste management facility on South Villa Avenue, just outside of town, outside of Fowler specifically. Resulting in such, we actually had a pretty increased experience with regards to customer service experience, as well as the volume of materials that we received. Estimates prove that we had approximately 337 households actually utilizing the service. Comparing that to the spring cleanup the year before, where it was held at the Dockery Avenue location, which was the old Selma disposal yard, we counted 230 households. So there was an uptick despite the distance. Going along with that, there was the increase in volume as well. Let it be known, though, that spring cleanups are typically a little bit heavier because of all the green vegetation, so that does warrant a little bit of that. But like we said, we have the trend going upwards. The wait time that your average customers had while at the Jefferson Avenue transfer station was only about 5 minutes. In contrast to where we've done it at remote locations where it has been up to about a half hour. So there are some factors to consider there. If there are any questions that you have, I'm happy to hear those.
Mike, I had some customers tell me that they really loved going there because your staff helped them take the, their stuff off their trucks or trailers. And one customer told me he was able to bring his truck and his trailer, and you helped, your staff helped him. So that was really great.
Yes.
They appreciate that.
And to that credit, at the remote sites that we've operated, be it at Dockery or at the school district yard, we have limited the residents to really only bringing their personal vehicles,
Yeah.
not trailers alongside. Anytime that a trailer has been brought to one of the remote sites, we have asked them to kindly go to our yard because we can accept that volume there. Additionally, we kind of look at it as a one-stop shop. Whereas at our remote sites, we've had a number of roll-off boxes, which are the big construction-style boxes that are staged out for what we call source separating, meaning that green waste goes one place, wood waste goes another, pure trash in one area, metals, and white goods or household appliances. Whereas at the VIA location, a customer can drop off and literally just shove it all right out the back, and our crew is actually the one handling the source separation or reallocation of resources.
How far is the VIA location?
About 8 miles just north of town.
Okay. And so just to clarify, this is not to permanently make the location the headquarters for waste management, South Fowler or Fresno. This is just for this pickup and drop-off day.
That is entirely up to council's discretion. We would love to house it, but any other true modifications outside of location would require a contract amendment, which is outlined in the city manager's briefing.
Because I heard good things too about the last drop-off. There were more people that used it. You helped them take things off. There was more help there, and you extended the hours?
Yes, so effectively by operating under waste management's operating hours at the yard, your residents actually received an additional effective dumping day.
And what are those hours again?
I believe 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yeah, the extra 2 hours.
Okay, extra couple of hours
Whereas
there.
if we do it remotely, those hours are truncated to roughly, I believe it's 7 or 8 a.m. to about 4 p.m. So yes, that effective 1 to 2 hours each day has embanked into an
And I think there
additional
were some
full
concerns
operating
with the
day on
school
the back end.
about all that trash there and the pollutants and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we did experience some setbacks with regards to the school district yard. You may have heard some incidences because of some soft soils where vehicles were stuck in loose dirt, which became mud, whereas our surface is paved, clean, and again, we have the assistants on board to help out.
All right, thank you. Does anybody from the public have any input tonight? Anything they'd like to say?
One question.
Come on up.
They used to put these dumpsters in all around the area of Selma. Will they be doing that again?
No, you know, can I answer that, Scott?
for it.
Yeah, what happened, Joe, back then, you're not gonna believe this. The homeless started jumping inside there and getting stuff out. I'm just telling you, man. I'm just letting you know, man. I'm letting you know.
And to further address what the resident may actually be speaking to is part of our Christmas tree cleanup program. And so that occurs at the end of the Christmas season going into the new year, where there are numerous roll-off boxes staged across the
one at
community
Abraham Lincoln.
to capture those Christmas trees.
Right. Okay.
And you're gonna maintain that?
That is maintained.
Continue to do that, okay?
So,
All right, with that, no more public input. We'll bring it back to council. Is there further discussion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Aye.
Mayor Robertson?
Aye. Okay, we'll move on now to the next item of business tonight, which is item 5, discussion and direction regarding the city's billboard display sign policy and procedures. Report, please.
Mayor Robinson, members of the City Council, at our last City Council meeting, you asked staff to bring back for discussion the policy on the billboard sign. So we are here tonight to seek direction and ideas to where we can put together over the next couple of weeks and bring it back for a vote from the council on the ideas. Presently, as you know, the CIS operates the billboard on Floral and Whitson, and there's also one operated on the highway just south of Selma as you're coming from Kingsburg into Selma. Our policy has been to where we, after 6 commercials, we get, which is basically 14%, we get the 7th slot. And in that 7th slot, we put citywide events and the Chamber of Commerce events, and also like public announcements that we have, like the districting that had been on this the billboard before. Based on the timing at the intersections, we have felt that up to 3 ads can be put up at one time on the Floral and Whitson, and up to 2 on 99. Especially 99, we all know cars are flying by 75, 85 miles an hour. So odds are you can go by any of these signs and not see one of our ads. It's just the timing. So that's been our policy. And so We have the ability, there's a special pixel size you have to put in, you have to turn into a JPEG. The concern too is if you have too many, then staff time is having to convert these and go back and forth on computers with the other agencies to make sure we get the correct conversion. Right now, we are more efficient than we were when the policy was written. We are allowed up to 6 events that the CEIS will do for us, but you know, through the Arts Center and some of our volunteers, especially with the play, they've become quite proficient with it, and so we insert some of ours now. So with that, I'd just like to open up for questions and discussion and get some ideas, and again, bring it back to council for any changes you might have.
Okay, that will bring it back to council. Does council have any comments at this time?
I think the policy is fine as it is, and we should just keep it as is. That's my thought.
Okay, does anybody else? I know I wanted to talk about this because the issue I had was the Chamber of Commerce getting preferential treatment for the board. You know, just because they're the chamber, they do a great job. I have nothing against the chamber per se. It's just, why can't other nonprofits also be allowed to put their events on the board? And I would like our council to look at that tonight as a potential for a policy change.
Like we do our fireworks, kind of a drawing type?
Like a drawing, like say Little League wants to put
Is
their
that what you're
event
trying
on
to-
there,
Is that what you're
or
trying to say?
yeah, Little League or teams
Well,
or dance or some
the
other
only-
event.
The,
That we're- that we're drawing if there are too many
I'm almost to admit that if something occurred that maybe attracted the attention to this, is maybe the group should have paid for that event. But as an accountant, my biggest concern is that there's a lot of groups that consider themselves nonprofit in our community that are not nonprofit. And in regards to doing our due diligence in the city, I would recommend that before we even have this discussion, probably talk to our city manager and see what kind of format we have in place to make sure that the policy is being adhered. The fact that
So
you
what
guys,
is
the
your
fact that,
definition of a
well, I
nonprofit?
mean, it has to have the Secretary of State's number and has to be approved, because there's the Secretary of State's the one that issues the nonprofit organization. A lot of the nonprofit organizations in this city are considered invalid. If you go to the website, Secretary of State, a lot of the organizations that have a Secretary of State number have been here for years and are invalid. I know that because I revive corporations. I work with the Secretary of State. I know what nonprofits are. I know what a corporation, an S and a C corporation. A lot of them are not following the guidelines of the Secretary of State, and they have to be revived. I work with that. I do that. The question I have for you, before you guys come and do this, what have you done with the city manager to do the due diligence to understand that these corporations, these nonprofits that are in our community are really nonprofit and have a valid nonprofit? Not invalid, because there's a lot of them that have been suspended from the Secretary of State and the Franchise Tax Board. Why? Because they have non-operating. And that's all I'm asking. Before we do this, let's make sure that our city manager attorney has something in policy in place to make sure that our nonprofits are up to date.
Okay, I don't know if we want to really have the time and the resources to go through every
So you're
nonprofit and be
so
the
then how are we gonna be
nonprofit
giving
police.
people an opportunity?
But
It
where,
doesn't
where
make
I,
sense.
no, but what I take from you, from what you're saying is that if someone does want to get on the board, that they do need to submit their taxpayer ID number, which can be easily checked on the IRS nonprofit site.
There's a Secretary of State
You could check
website. You type
Secretary
their
of
number
State,
in and it
could
tells you if it's
check
valid
the,
or not.
The IRS, I mean, I know, I've been to numerous healthcare district meetings, and they have a strict rule about granting money to nonprofits. And so that, as part of their vetting process, they look up these nonprofits for every grant that they bestow. So that takes about, I think, about 3 minutes. So that should not be a big deal. And if they don't, meet the if they're not a real nonprofit, then they can't
Well,
put their
Mr. Mayor,
message
we're
on
dealing
the
with
board.
public funds, and we're dealing with a billboard that's paid with public funds. So all I'm asking is to make sure our staff is adhering to the policies that you need to make sure
It
we're.
wasn't billed with public funds. It was a
So then
private.
wh-
They just
okay,
give
so
the
then-
city 9 seconds.
wasn't
And I'm not trying to quibble with you. I'm just saying there's a larger issue here, Councilman Trujillo. And the larger issue that I see is, why should the chamber get preferential treatment on putting their ads on the board when there are other worthy nonprofits that have events that they should be able to put on there too? And what I'm seeing in this report is, the reason is, well, because it takes me time as the, Parks and Community Services Commissioner, Mike Kirschner. It's up to him to take these ads and craft them, right? You have to put them on in the format for that reader board at Whitson and Floral. And for the 99 one, you're saying, forget it, I'm not even gonna work on that. You have to have a graphic designer do those ads in a very specific criterion. And what I'm here to say tonight is we have someone who's on the Arts Council, an arts commissioner, as it were, who is a professional graphic designer and who is willing to donate his time every month to nonprofits who would like to get their worthy causes listed in public at the corner of Rose and Floral and on Highway 99. So that seems to be one of the big
So it sounds like you guys
objections
have already
there.
talked about it, right?
No,
I don't know where you get that.
Mr.
Whatever.
Mayor.
So we have someone, I was looking at your objections, and that seems to be one that it takes you a lot of time, and so you can't really consider ideas and artwork from other organizations. If we have someone who would be willing to donate their time, which I got from reading my packet, Councilman Trillo, and understanding it, and then acting on it,
Exactly.
we could have other nonprofits who could submit their artwork, and it wouldn't take you a whole heck of a lot of time because they would just be submitting things that you could get right on there,
Just
that you
charge
could put
everybody
it in there.
That's what I'm
And if you have more than 3 or 4, then you could do a lottery. You could do a selection every month on those organizations, rather than just saying, well, if you're not the chamber, you get bumped. But if you are the chamber, absolutely, we'll put you in. I don't think that's fair. I think every nonprofit should have
Mr. Mayor,
the opportunity to get their ad on the billboard.
are you on the Chamber of Commerce? Are you a member?
We are a member.
You are a member?
My insurance agency is a member.
Okay, so then I'm a member. Why don't we just do it where everybody just pays?
Is it a board, does it allow that?
The contract does not allow us to sell ads to be on the billboard.
This is a donation of time, so you can't do that.
I think what he might be suggesting is that only the ads would be for the city and
It's
not for
9
other
seconds.
organizations.
It's 9 seconds, 14% is 9 seconds. Okay, so,
12 seconds.
right, that's the problem
Yeah.
here, right, Mike? Let's get practical. You don't have the time to be taking people's
Previously, in
ads.
the years when the city manager asked us to put this policy together, it was based on submittals that were not gonna be appropriate in size and going back and forth. The idea with one group is not to expand more than 3. And so how do we do each month, trying to develop a policy where you get everything on time? Because you have to be 4, 5, 6 months ahead of yourselves here. For us to stagger this and keep it 3 or less, or even 2 or less. So the challenge is trying to manipulate all that with the ability we had and the staffing we had, and that's how it became citywide events and then chamber events. So as far as staff's concerned, yeah, it would be a lot easier if it's just citywide, because we kind of know the schedule from day in, day out. I would be real concerned with the lottery when you have 150 groups, trying to define that and setting up a system that's advanced.
If they submitted artwork, but see, the thing is that you didn't have before that you have now in your quiver is you have a professional graphic designer who will help them make their ads camera ready for your board that you didn't have before. That'll save you a lot of time. And if you get 6 of those, why wouldn't you just randomly select at a council meeting or some other meeting the events that get to go up that month? Do you do it on a monthly basis? I mean, what's your timeline on putting those up on the boards?
Well, because it's either through us or the chamber, it's been whenever the artwork is completed. We try to get up no more than 4 weeks in advance. Because if you go too far in advance, people stop looking, or it's too far away. So
It doesn't mean the chamber gets kicked out. It just means they're like every other nonprofit that has
Right
to
now, I will say
enter
the
the
chamber
contest
has-
and has to do a drawing.
the
get in
chamber, we've
drawing.
had the Raisin Festival and the Christmas parade, and then the occasional concert. Those have been 3 events for the chamber.
Chamber of Commerce uses the Raisin Festival.
Can you step up here, sir?
And if I might, while he's on his way, I did want to answer the question. We don't, currently, the policy does not have nonprofits on there, but if it does change to do that, we can make sure that they are current valid nonprofits. So I just wanted to make that clear. And we can look at the options based on the recommendations and the input we're getting here tonight. That is what Mike's goal was to do.
Because it
Thank
is
you.
the city manager.
Rob Allen, Executive Director, Selma Chamber. There's actually only 2 events that the chamber asked for to be put on there: the Raisin Festival and Santa's Arrival. July 3rd, if you remember, is a city chamber event. It's a joint event. So that's why that is up there. The only other time we have asked is when we have sponsored a fundraiser for the Tejano concert for two nonprofits in the city, and this year for the music festival. Those are the only times we've asked to use the electronic signs. So
You bumped the Tejano concert this year.
I
for
was
the
not
music
asked to
festival.
sponsor the Tejano concert this year.
The Tejano concert was already up there. You didn't need to be asked. It was already up
I'm
there, was
asked
it
every
not?
year for it.
So then it was taken off. So that, that's just a case in point, but I think there are other, it's a chilling. It has a chilling effect that people know that only chamber events get to go up on the board. So
You know,
if
we can,
allowed other events.
we don't have to have any of our events. I pay for advertisements above and beyond that. So whatever the wishes of the council is fine with us. I just think that we probably bring in a lot more people into the city of Selma who utilizes the business services downtown and elsewhere in the city.
No argument, but does that mean you should be able to have, does that mean the chamber, of which I'm a member, by the way, a proud member, does that mean that the chamber should be allowed to have their ads exclusively over the rest of the nonprofits? That doesn't seem fair, does it?
So you would suggest instead of, and I don't want to use the name of a nonprofit because I don't want to offend anybody, but somebody who's having a dinner to raise funds for uniforms should bump an event that's going to bring 10,000 people into town?
So I'm not saying that
Because
any event should bump
one of-
anybody. I'm saying
one
it
of
should be a
the-
democratic process of, people going into a drawing. And the chamber can certainly request with
Yeah,
an
one of-
argument, and that could still be taken into account. Don't know how many 10,000 people events that you have, but I mean, if you certainly
we
had
have
one,
like
then
that
it would be, certainly that would be a weighting factor in the board. But what I'm saying overall for 12 months is, why not let all the nonprofits have a shot at advertising their events on the board? That's all I'm saying.
And
We're
one
just
of the-
looking to make it fair
One of
across
the
the
res-
board.
Okay, one of the responsibilities you have given us is that your chamber is to market the city. And we try to do that when we use that billboard. That's the only time we try to do
We
that.
appreciate that, but
Thank
you're
you.
not the only game in town, and we have other nonprofits that are worthy of getting their events publicized too. Okay? All right, with that, any more discussion?
Nope.
Okay. So what? Hold on, we have another speaker.
2411 Park Street, 1057 Mill Street. Rosa Gallardo Robertson. I just want to say, I totally understand. I'm on the chair for the healthcare district, and I totally understand what Councilmember Trujillo's saying. Maybe you could look at it also as the fact that, there's these nonprofit organizations that bring services to the city as well. For example, Second Chance Animal Shelter. And yes, the chamber, when I was on the board, we brought in over probably close to $20,000 from the Tejano Country Concert event for the last 3 years when again, when I was on the board. And they did do the work to earn the proceeds. However, when you do, maybe what you can also do when these nonprofits come is you can eliminate them like we do for the Selma Healthcare District Board. If their tax ID 501c3 is not valid, it will not go through. It's just the fact that, the Tejano / Country Concert that we are now celebrating the 7th year annual for the citizens of Selma here is a great event. Our tickets are $15, and over we get families and we get reunions, and all the citizens, we get about 3 or 4, 5 generations. They're here right now. Some of the generations are here who celebrate this event, and it's affordable for 3 or 4 generations. And this is to help our city. This is to help our citizens of Selma with the services of the Second Chance Animal Shelter, which is another, a service that we definitely need. It's just unbelievable to me that there's always preference in areas, and there's been for over 100 years, and times are changing. Los tiempos van cambiando, and it's just, we should all just embrace change. It's okay to embrace change, and we could all work together. just do not be afraid to change. Be willing to work together. And if people would be more fair, we wouldn't have these disagreements. So, thank you.
Thank you. More comments? Well, so I'm just looking at this, the structure of this. So I believe I would be ready to make a motion to allow other nonprofits to be able to submit their ads utilizing the assistance of Mr. Jose Moreno, who's on the Arts Council, who has graciously agreed to donate his time to help them become camera ready, to make sure that you don't spend so much time on this. Is there a way that can practically happen if this motion would get seconded and carried tonight? How would you implement that?
Well, tonight, and I think the recommendation, we'd have to have it clarified from the city attorney, but we did ask for a recommendation for discussion to move forward.
More time in.
So I'm not sure we actually could vote on this tonight, but I could formulate a policy based on how you're written. I'd also like to talk to Mr. Moreno just to make sure that this is what he would agree upon. I've not had a conversation with him about the billboard. And we can bring back what your input is tonight and see if you'd agree upon it at the next meeting.
So he didn't recommend that? Mr. Moreno doesn't understand or doesn't know that we were.
No, I've not
doing
had a
this.
conversation with him about him volunteering to do the.
I'm bringing it up because I had the conversation with Mr. Moreno.
But you
who's
guys
an
both
arts
stated
commissioner.
earlier that I didn't read my packet, that he was giving you the authorization to do that, and that's why you were bringing it up. Now he's stating that it hadn't been talked about. But you
Maybe-
talked to him personally.
Maybe he didn't talk to him, but
So
I
you
talked to
guys
him.
talked to him. You guys too talked to him, because you agreed. That's the question I have.
No,
I
that's
agreed
not
that-
at all.
That I
That's
didn't
not
read
at all.
my
He didn't tell
packet.
you that you didn't read your own.
You're just trying to make
You're just
something
putting
else
words
I'm
in
not
your mouth.
making
out of this.
nothing. I'm asking.
Yeah, you're just trying
I'm
to say
asking
something.
Mike
The
personally.
idea
Did you
is,
speak to him?
why should the Chamber of Commerce be able to bump other ads and be privileged over
They're
the
not
other
bumping
nonprofits?
anybody.
They're not bumping
did.
They
anyone.
should be
did.
able,
Bumping
yes, they
They're not
did.
bumping nobody.
They should, the other nonprofits should have an equal opportunity to put their ads on the boards at Whitson and Floral and 99. And what I brought up with Mr. Moreno is he graciously offered to donate his time, which you can confirm, Mr. Director,
Yeah, I will.
that he's willing to donate his expertise to take that objection off the plate that you've raised tonight in this packet. So, that being said, if our director goes back and gets that, shall we continue this to the next meeting?
I
where
make
we
a
can nail-
motion,
put
I
this
want to
down-
make a
nail
motion
this
to
down
just
a
keep
little
the
bit.
policy as is.
Hang on. Just, Scott, let's look at the agreement with, cause you talked to Mr. Moreno, and let's look at the person that's doing the meter.
We would like
You
to
get the
take your.
concept though, right?
I know,
You
yeah,
get the
yeah, the
concept,
concept,
right?
yeah.
Chamber should not be able to have all the ads on the board.
They
That's
don't
what
have
we're
all
talking
the
about, the
ads.
big picture.
They don't have all the ads. I
They
don't
don't, but they
understand
should,
this
but the other
direction of chamber. They
nonprofits
run
should be
3,
able
4
to
ads
have
a
some
year,
too. That's why
and
Mike brought
we're
this back
talking
to
about
the
it's-
council as a policy change.
If I might, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we'll bring back to you, we have your input and we can bring back to
Well,
you
there's
some
two motions.
policy.
The mayor made a motion and I made a motion.
That's correct.
Well, let's finish the mayor's motion.
I
Mayor
made
made a
n-
motion.
No.
I did not make a motion. I asked to
Just bring it back.
clarify the
Just
motion,
bring
how
it
we
back.
could do this practically.
Oh, my
And if we could bring this
Just bring it
back,
Just bring it back.
to do it practically, if we could get something that's a little more tangible than this, which is a little too broad,
I,
for the next meeting, let's nail it down. Maybe
made
you
a
could
motion.
talk to Mr. Moreno, and you could nail the wording down on this for the next meeting. I would be fine with continuing it till the next meeting, or till whenever you can nail this down and make it more concrete.
Correct. And I also would agree
Mi-
with
mi-
Councilmember Trio, where when we followed the alcohol policy we just said at Pioneer Village, we require the actual letter that they're certified from the state as a nonprofit to be submitted, so that's proof that they are a nonprofit.
I don't know what the whole fuss is about me questioning things that go on in the city. I'm asking that if you come and you put something on the agenda, you do your due diligence and have your everything crossed and brought into our staff. Right now, we're having a discussion in regards to the ins and out of this discussion. In reality, we weren't even informed. That's why we're having this discussion. That's why it looks like we're negotiating and back and forth. Maybe our staff needs to do a little more due diligence and have the report so we can actually have a better communication where someone doesn't say that I'm not reading my packet.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council,
It's
we
just a
would like your
distraction.
input and we
Just irrelevant.
have in our report that we want to bring it back to you in the future. That is our
Right.
recommendation.
Okay,
Wait,
so the
well, hold
topic
on.
is to bring it back, so the
Bring it back.
recommendation is to review the billboard sign display policy and provide direction to staff. So that was
Mi-
that was tonight, that was what we're doing tonight, so we're still gonna do that. But from
No,
what
they
I
can just
understand, if
deny
we're
it. If
gonna
you want to deny it,
con-
just deny it.
if we're gonna continue it, we're gonna get some more detail on it. Irrelevancies aside, you know, these tangents aside of making political speeches, let's
I
get
don't do
back to
political
the
speeches. I
bill,
talk to
let's get
you.
back to the
I talk to
billboard
you in regards to what's
and
fair.
people getting
Sorry.
preferential treatment.
Okay.
So, and nonprofits being able to have an equal opportunity to advertise on the billboard. That's all I'm
Right.
talking about tonight.
We're talking
Nothing-
about 6
nothing
seconds on a
political.
billboard.
And
So are
again,
we gonna
there
bring-
were several items, so we'll bring back some
So-
You made a
options.
motion?
I made a motion, and I
second it.
think, I had made a motion for clarification that we keep the policy as is.
Okay, I hadn't made a motion. So if he made a motion to keep the status quo and let the chamber continue to do whatever they want with you know, have all their ads on the board, then that's fine. We could go
Scott,
forward
they're
with
not-
that.
Okay.
they don't
Is there a
have all their
second?
ads. They don't have all their ads.
second it.
Scott, they don't
They,
have all
they get
their ads.
preference. They get to
They-
have their
they-
ads on there
but
to the
Because
exclusivity
the
of their.
fireworks is part of their city.
Absolutely, and they could
and they-
continue to do, we're
and
not
they-
talking about that.
I
We're
mean, no,
saying
no, no,
that
I
the
mean,
chamber
I'm
should
just
not
trying to-
necessarily have
I mean-
preferential treatment on this. And we could get a policy by our Parks and Community Services Director that would address that.
Well, you
That
know,
would be
let's-
more fair. Are
let's-
you against fairness?
No,
I mean, I don't
okay, you
know
know,
who's
Scott,
against fairness.
let's let her Teresa do her job. and
So
bring
we
it
have a
back to us.
second on the, we could
And bring
talk
it back
after
to
a
us.
second.
Bring it
So
back
now
to
we
us.
can take it to a vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco.
There you go.
Aye.
Okay, so I think the motion, let's go back. We have a city council meeting, let's clarify this. The motion for Mr. Franco was to,
Let
can
him
you
say
state
it.
that again?
I make a motion that we keep the policy as is.
Okay, so that's the motion on the floor.
And I
We had a
second it.
second from Mr. Trujillo. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco.
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo.
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos.
No, but I'm making another motion. I'm gonna make another motion on this.
Well, let's-
Councilmember Guerra.
No.
Mayor Robertson.
No.
I don't know. Okay, and I'll make the motion to, our city manager to review the policies and see if we can facilitate some of these issues that our council appears up here requesting, okay?
And that would include the Director Kirschner talking with Mr. Moreno, who's agreed to
Oh,
volunteer his
that's
time
part
to
of-
help
that's part of- that's
nonprofits
part of the
put their,
dialogue.
put
That's
their
part of
ads
the
on the
dialogue,
board.
okay?
Okay,
second it.
all right, great.
Okay?
Second, all right.
All right.
Did you, a second by Councilman Trujillo.
Councilmember Avalos.
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo.
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco.
No.
Mayor Robertson.
Aye. Okay, we'll bring it back at a future meeting. Next item, consideration of transferring $370,000 to the city's unfunded pension obligations and discussion and direction regarding the establishment of an IRS Section 115 pension trust. Report, please.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. The item before you is a topic that we previously discussed. One of them is about the discussion of making an allocation of a budget amount of $370,000 to the unfunded liability. And also we'll be discussing the IRS, sorry, it cut off there, Section 115 trust fund and what that looks like. So the first item that we'll discuss is the unfunded accrued liability. Kind of going through and breaking that down a little bit. So again, during the budget process for the fiscal year of 1920, as of council's direction, we allocated $370,000 to be sent to our pension obligation. At this point, we're discussing what is the most feasible action to be able to do with those funds and what your savings would be. So the proposed options would be allocated to a Section 115 trust or directly to the unfunded accrued liability. So what is the unfunded accrued liability? Unfunded accrued liability is amortized dollar amounts needed to fund the past services, credits earned or accrued for members who are currently receiving benefits, active members, and other members entitled to the benefits. Basically, your retirees, your policy in which they've made gains and losses and they've amortized over a period, so it's the amount that we owe to continue those services for those pension obligations. So currently, as of the valuation date, which is the report we just received from CalPERS, you can see the multiple groups that we have. We have 5 in total. Obviously, the classic is the prior before the Pension Reform Act. So those amounts are the larger ones, with one at $9 million and one at $7 million. So your total unfunded liability as of that measurement date of 6/30/2018 is about 16.4 million. So going through and doing my analysis on where we can basically, for lack of a better term, get more bang for our buck. Okay? When you're looking at the amount that you're actually allocating, the 370,000, it's not a large amount that you can take and do smoothing out the payments, because remember you have that large hump that's coming into it. But what you can do is save by actually applying it to a larger scale amortization schedule, a large with it still outstanding, 25 years for this scale, and allocate it to that amount, so your overall savings would be 793,000 as an estimated amount. So there's two ways you can look at it when you're going to this. You can look at the short term and try to apply it to a smaller scale and reduce your payments liability for the future for the short term, or you can grab a larger scale and stretch it out over that large scale and saving the interest. So given the amount that we currently have, the impact to look at the short term would be very reduced. You wouldn't have a large overall impact to that schedule because of the amount, but you'd actually save a lot more by looking at the long term. So this is the estimates that I came up to be for the 730,000, okay? Or 793,000, sorry. So before we get into the pension trust, what I would like is just a recommendation that we'll be going through this and be able to allocate this. I'll give you a true number once we be able to get that, because it is a measurement date. So the date that I actually make that allocation will give me the actual amount that's going to be saved. But that is my recommendation today. One other request that we are looking into is the Section 115 trust. So what is the Section 115 trust? It's an IRS code 115, which basically allows for organizations to allocate into a trust where the amount that's being allocated is actually saved just for pension obligations. Okay? So what that means is you'll basically put it into a bank, they can invest it, but it has to be stabilized just for pension obligations only. Okay? So the benefits of a Section 115. The income derived from a Section 115 is tax exempt. Is also, the city can determine with the risk level, so we can have a high risk factor or a low risk factor depending on what we do. And you could also shift that periodically. So you can manage your money a lot more better than what you could within a pension program. So for example, the pension program, you can't set those boundaries of the risk factor. The CalPERS set those boundaries for you. So in this sense, you can be a lot more risk. You can try and get more for your money, or you can make a medium or low risk, so depending on how you want to utilize that. Okay? So the funds are being used for reimbursement for the city pension, contributions transferred directly to the CalPERS, or could pay for plan expenses. So those are the items of which you can utilize it for. Again, basically the way I justify it and look at it, it's a savings account. You're gaining interest, you're making a return, but you have your obligation there just for the pensions factor only. Okay? The organization that we'll be looking at to kind of help foresee us through this process would be PARS. They're a reputable organization. I've talked to them multiple times throughout this process and looking at this trust. As you can see from the chart here, you can see that they've actively beat out CalPERS as far as their investments. So again, looking at the risk factors, they're able to do a lot more broader range of things compared to the CalPERS contribution. So is there any questions regarding the 115 trust?
Bring that back to council. Does anybody have some questions tonight? I've got a question for you. Where did the 370,000 come from to put in to the pension to send to CalPERS?
That was part of the budget process. We allocated it to be, it's part of our pension expense.
That was part of the tax sharing agreement with Mr. Nelson that the city now has?
It's part of the overall budgeted amount. I mean, a large factor that we discussed is the savings from not having that tax share agreement.
That's yes. Okay. And are we going to set aside that 370,000 every year?
So my objection for today is to get the amount allocated, and then next month I'd like to come back to you and we're going to discuss policy on how we can do future transactions such as this.
So you're just you're just looking for the 370 tonight to be authorized to send to CalPERS.
That's
and
correct.
that'll actually result in a decrease in our liability of 793,000.
It's 793,000 of interest saved over the term of that 25 years.
Okay.
But that's what they'll
So
say
today, what I'll be
25
requesting
years.
is authorization to send the transfer amount of 370 to the unfunded liability, and also to start talking to PARS so we can actually establish a 115 trust. That's something I'd like to bring back another item too. To establish the trust itself, you don't need to deposit any funds. It's totally free. The only time it does start to cost is when you actually start depositing funds. Again, we'll come back to that once we actually start having a fiscal policy in place so that we can start issuing money into it.
This is just a
That's what
building
we
block of the
I was gonna
policy.
ask you, in our budget, we talked about this.
Mhm.
We talked about it, we said we were gonna start getting geared up for the next year, we're gonna start setting policy. Have you guys been having meetings in regards to that, where we'll be at? Policy?
That's what so laying the foundation for that policy meeting. So this is the beginning that works, kind of gives
Yeah.
introduction to
So
it, and
when
then
we-
next meeting we'll start talking about policy.
So when we're talking about the 370, we're talking about the last year's, and when will we start to get talking about for the future in regards to how we'll be, didn't we talk that we were gonna get into, our own account, and you were gonna create an account for this?
The policy discussion is what we're gonna be having next month.
That's
Again,
one.
we're having this as
Will
a
it be
starting
the same
base.
amount, or we're gonna get, and didn't we say we're gonna increase?
We're gonna create fiscal policies and how we determine that amount. So
Okay.
a good example would be 50% of whatever the retained earnings from a fiscal year would be allocated to the trust fund or be to the unfunded liability. So we're gonna have that conversation next month.
Okay.
I'd like to schedule it for next month.
Okay, so that meeting will be scheduled for next month?
That's
Isaac?
correct.
Okay.
I think
to
we
g-
talked about the potential of, we talked about the difference between, just sending money to CalPERS or putting it in a trust, and we talked about Davis sending us at that show that they had for municipal
Was it 15%?
financial officers.
Was it 20%?
They sent all their money ahead of time, and they lost it when they just kept requesting more and more money when the economy went south. So they just really lost all that. So that was a bad thing. But we didn't really set policy, we just discussed it. So
We
you're
discussed
saying-
it. This is
We raised
this is
it.
the amount that we approved to be allocated in a pension fashion. So this is the direction or the information that I gathered. This would be the best way to allocate it.
Which was a
For
similar
this dollar
amount to
amount
the Nelson
and
tax
for this
sharing.
period, yes, I would do this.
Okay.
This would be my recommendation.
And then, are you actually asking for an amount of how much will go into the section 115?
No, all I'm asking is to start the process of getting it approved. It still has to come back to council, get the formally adopted. Again, it's just kind of ramping up to the meeting that we're going to have regarding policy.
Is the 6.7% discount rate, is that has that been published? That's for 18,
The 6.7% that's in your staff report is what they actually made last fiscal. So they're
That's-
not even hitting the 7%.
So, and then that difference between 7, what they said they were gonna make, and the 6.7, what they did make, the city has to make up for?
That's correct.
And the employees sharing that? So this is more than an academic discussion, this is something that hits the cities in the pocketbook, is that right?
It is part of our budgeting process, yes. The unfunded liability has to be accounted for.
Okay.
So are you asking for a motion on this to grant it, to give you the opportunity, or just?
That's
just-
correct, just so that I can,
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve this.
I'll second it.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Mayor Robertson?
thank you.
Aye. All right,
Thanks,
so with
Isaac.
that, we will move on to the departmental reports. City manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We received the soil testing report from the dirt at the city yard, and the soil is not contaminated, so we are working on the logistics of moving the soil that is at the city yard so we can move the fire training facility and get Fresno County RTA their land. So that was good news.
Time.
No, good job.
The request for proposals for a job training subcontractor went out for the high-speed rail training center project, so we are waiting for responses on that. And as well, the request for proposals for an executive recruitment firm to assist with the recruitment of the new police chief is also out.
All good.
Thank you.
City Attorney Costanzo.
No reports this evening from me, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Finance Director, Assistant City Manager Moreno.
Thank you. Just one item. Just want to let you know I had a conference call with the water board. They're the individual or the body that's going to be allocated in the 1.5 for the budget appropriation. So we're looking at what those boundaries are and what we can and can't do. Again, there was 3 projects that were identified within that appropriation, so we're trying to figure out what are our parameters and things of that nature. So they're looking still into that. They haven't said whether we can shift it to one project or it's got to be spread across all 3. So we're still kind of having that conversation. Right now, what we're doing is sending them information as far as our budgetary amounts, what the scope of the project looks like, and our timeline. So we're still working through that process right now. So I just want to make you aware.
Okay. In terms of finance, I was copied on an email from the Boys and Girls Club with the budget allocation.
Mhm.
The budget, there was a certain amount adopted for the support of the Boys and Girls Club that has not been allocated. Is that gonna be allocated to them?
That will be coming to them in the next couple weeks, yes.
Next couple weeks, the full
Yeah, they're gonna
amount from
schedule a
city
meeting
council
with,
allocated.
Mr. Kirchner, and but that allocation will be scheduled.
Okay, thank you. Then we have, let's see, we will move on to our fire captain tonight.
Nothing
Our
to report.
Chief Peterson. Acting board.
Boy, you're slipping there, girl.
Acting Chief Myron Dick, Selma PD.
Have before you some significant calls. The main one I'd like to draw your attention to, we talk about different times when we have our cameras around the city and what we're seeing. Our dispatcher looks at the cameras and saw somebody on a building that shouldn't be, our new car wash. And simply our dispatcher noticing that, we were able to get somebody out there with the thankfully assistance of the fire department because of needing some access. We were able to take the guy into custody for burglary and several other crimes, and so that the cameras do pay off in many different ways. And the benefit they show that we would not have been aware of this crime until the next day when they opened the business. So some benefits really of our camera system and the need to continue utilizing that.
Thank you.
Right.
You know, Chief, I've been getting reports that there've been folks from a local gang who've been assembling at Salazar Park and making things uncomfortable for the, you know, folks in the park and also the actual Boys and Girls Club who have their hours during the day. If something's going on, the parents are much less likely to drop their kids off if they see kids there. So I'm just hopeful that you guys are looking at the cameras, and if you could increase patrols there too during club hours, that would really help. Because I've gotten several calls now on some issues there, and
Yes.
I've related that with
Yeah,
the
I was
city
gonna say,
manager.
The city manager and I have spoken about that. We've increased patrols around there and also talking to Magic about coming in and maybe do some enforcement in some of those times to hopefully drive them back out of the area.
Because one time it was 15, you know, gang members assembling
And-
at one time, and they're not getting together to trade
So
recipes.
you're aware, we've had about 5 or 6 just in the last few days of that call. But when we get there, neither are none of the group, nor any of the people reporting it have been on scene. So it would be helpful if you're aware of somebody that they do remain on scene, they do, you know, converse with us so we have better leads and better ideas what we need to be looking for.
See something, say something. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Parks and Community Services Director.
In front of your, tonight, I want to make sure you guys are all aware that Senator Melissa Hurtado will be sponsoring a free senior scam stopper next Monday at the Senior Center, which is September 23rd from 9 a.m. to 10:30. It's free to the general public and basically talk about scams on seniors. 1 in 5 seniors has been a victim of either fraud of some type. And also tomorrow, the whole general public is invited to the Senior Center from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Is the annual flu shots, and they're free.
Thank you. That will bring it back to council. Councilmember Trujillo?
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Guerra?
Let me see. Let me start with, I attended a ribbon cutting for the Vein and Wooden Dr. Fung new business. That was a really nice ribbon cutting. I'd like to welcome them. Also, the Senior Resource Fair on Friday. They had a lot of nice vendors there. And I also attended the 25th anniversary for the IRS Hire Conference. And I attended a meeting with Kaiser Permanente with the city manager, Teresa, and council member John. And they talked about partnering with Selma and with some nonprofits. And so we're gonna kind of talk to them about some things that they may be able to help us out with. And everything went really great with them, right? So that was pretty much it for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Avalos?
Oh, okay. I attended the church, Valley Life had a barbecue. Actually, at their church, they invited everybody, free barbecue for the public. and it was to get to meet the congregation leaders and everything. And the pastor, the church, they brought a dunk tank, and you'd be surprised how many people lined up to dunk the pasture. They said, "In the name of God, we're going to hit you." But no, but it was a good event. It was good. Things like that are good because in our community, you need these special events like that, churches, to bring people together. It's a good cause in life. And also, I attended the ribbon cutting for Dr. Fang, being a part of our community, which is good. That way, people don't have to go so far away to get the medical attention they need. You know, some people don't have transportations, and we're very fortunate that we have a specialist here nearby. And that's very fortunate, and it's a good thing because it tells me that City of Selma, we're expanding in the right direction. We're getting medical people. You can tell by the United Health Care facilities are growing up around here. The proper care, it's all about preventative health and the services that you provide. Get to the doctor real quick, help people. It's all about saving lives. And once again, I stopped by the Boys and Girls Club. When I heard that issue, Scott, I do patrol. Mr. Avalos does patrol the Vadio. Just let people know out there, I do patrol the Vadio, and I do stop in and see the Boys and Girls Club because my grandkids go there. I drop them off.
Nice.
They're across town. They don't live in the Vadio, but I drop them there, and it's a good program. And I want them to learn what life's about on the other side of town, and that way they learn together. They be better persons inside themselves in our society. That's what it's about, you know. And so far, Dick, I admire you for the camera operations that are taking place. They are an effective tool. Trust me, I've been in a ride along and I've seen these cameras. I got to grant you, these are great tools. I wish in the future, maybe in the new subdivisions, we put them on the corners of new subdivisions. That way we can control activity in the new province of areas. You know, I think outside the box in our community. That way keep our citizens safe, and it's a good tool. And so I once again, I can't applaud the people that work for the city again. I always thank them, all the way down. Who they are, I thank them. I thank them very much. And Myron, I thank you for stepping up in situations like that took place, and I thank you. Our former chief retired, so I thank you very much, and you're doing a great job. Okay, I'm telling you, I've seen your work. Okay, but once again, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco.
Nothing much report. Just don't forget there's a community fundraiser for Selma Cancer Support on
That's right.
September 29th.
That's right.
Great cause, great artists. I recommend anybody get their tickets. It's going to be a fantastic event.
Great.
Thank you.
I attended a Selma Healthcare District meeting last week on districting. They're going through the same thing that the Selma City Council is going through right now. I understand from Moses Stites, director of the FCRTA, the Fresno County Rural Transit Agency, that they're going to put in another $22,000 moving gate at the maintenance facility down from the existing moving gate, so that's very good. I attended that same chamber ribbon cutting ceremony at the Central Valley Vein and Wound, and it's great that people don't have to drive all the way to Fresno to get that. I attended a Calvan's board meeting on a call-in basis on September 28th. I wanted to thank Mike Kirshner for being there on a weekend to make sure that those restrooms were open for those 2 birthday parties in Brentlinger. Thank you. You jumped on that in about a minute, and that really helped because I think they were looking at the wrong restrooms there, so thank you for that. I attended that stepping out for kids at the Boys and Girls Club. Very inspiring speech from a young woman from Orange Cove. It just tells you exactly what the Boys and Girls Club is all about. She grew up, parents were undocumented, and she had all the strikes against her, and she has made her life something to be emulated and something to be proud of. She's unbelievable. She's just such a role model and hero, and she came out of the Boys and Girls Club. And I remember, you know, the Vadio, I remember Salazar Park having our first campaign event over there when we had the bounce house for the kids, and then we had, Dan Barcelos doing the DJ. 2012, we made our hot dogs and hamburgers. We fed all of us, all the kids, and then the dogs came. We fed all the dogs, and then we took our leftovers home, and it was just a great night. And my heart is in the Vadio. We've had so many great events there. My wife grew up in the Vadio on Park Street. If you remember the stop signs that Mark Falcone used to come talk about for 10 years, we finally got that done on my watch. Put those stop signs in at Park at Skelton. That saved people, that saved animals, that has saved lives, putting that over there in the Vadio. And I'm proud to have played a part in that. Speaking of the Second Chance Animal Shelter, the city gave a grant of $1,500 to the Second Chance Animal Shelter for free spay and neuter in the community. Proud to say that 28 dogs and cats have taken advantage of that program. And that's really going to take people, it's going to take animals out of the mix, and it's going to lower the number of strays out there, and that's going to really lower the problem there. I also want to say thank you to everybody in the community for their well wishes after the last meeting. I appreciate that. I am hanging in there. This is a great city. I really appreciate everybody. And I do this because, you know, I love my community and because I want to be here. I thank you, and it's a real honor. With that, we will ask for the last round of oral communications. Would anyone like to stand up and be heard before we adjourn? Please.
Good evening. My name's Lori Perez. I live at 2335 Park Street, 2 blocks from Sal's. Anytime I had a problem in the Vadio, let me tell you, I call Scott Robinson, got taken care of. So thank you. I also want to thank the police department. Since some person not there anymore, we've had patrol in the evenings. So thank you. Before, you only saw them during the day. In the evening, they were never around. But they've been around during the day and during the evenings patrolling. So I really want to thank you for that. That's all I have to say for now.
Lori. Anyone else tonight? Is there a motion to adjourn? We're adjourned.
So what nights are your other councils?
Say it again?